Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living on Blockchain. Today, we are speaking to Colin. Colin is a blogger. He is an award-nominated blogger, actually, and he's a writer. He was a podcast host as well as, now he's guesting on these podcasts. His genre is basically comic writing, so to say. He's adding a lot of light into people's lives, and he talks in this particular conversation, he talks a lot about mental health and how he got into the blockchain and crypto space. It's something that I feel very passionately about as well. The importance of mental well-being and how it is increasingly becoming important to pay attention to our mental health. So this was a real fun conversation. Let's deep dive right in. Hi, Colin. Thank you so much for taking out the time to speak to me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. We're muddling through here. It's been an interesting few days with new lockdown restrictions that have just come in, but we're getting there.
Yeah, it's a hard time for everybody. I think it's been a very strange year.
It's been nothing. I don't know any other way to describe it. There's been, I think, too much going on. There's always stuff happening, but this year there has been more doom and gloom, more low points than at any other point that I can remember. The sad thing is as well, it's been on everyone's lips. There hasn't really been anything else to talk about.
Yeah, it's like trying to ignore the elephant in the room. When you try to talk about other things, somehow COVID and the lockdown and the hardship, it just makes its way into the conversation.
Well, we can try not to do that if you want.
That's absolutely fine, I think.
All right, we'll have it back. We'll see how we do.
Yeah, we can try. So, go ahead and tell us a little about your background and, how did you get into blockchain and crypto, per se?
Sure. So I grew up in the countryside of England, moved to London when I was 17 and started working in major financial institutions, then moved into recruitment for that sector. Moved out to New Zealand for a year, played rugby over there, came back to London. So everything was kind of normal-ish life, I guess, up until about 2007. We started getting really horrific neighbour problems. This kind of came to a head in 2010. When I got acid attacked on my doorstep. Now, this is quite it is not something I talk about very freely or easily. It's not an easy subject to talk about. But, it happened and it is my history. I can't pretend that I've got someone else's.
Right.
So anyway, after that, I'm a big ex-rugby, ex-Thai boxing, so I'm a big physical guy.
Right.
That cut me in ways that I think were unseen by most people. And this came to a head in 2014 when I almost got to the point where I took my own life.
Wow, okay.
Again, not easy subjects to talk about. Thank you. I mean, again, these aren't easy subjects to talk about, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't talk about them.
Yeah.
It's a hard point to reach in your life when there doesn't feel like there's any way that's up.
Yeah.
So gradually, I started clawing myself back, finding my way back out of the hole I put myself in. And I still am. It is not an overnight process where you wake up one day and you go, I'm better.
No, it's an everyday battle, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it is I got diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety and depression. There are three tags that I hate because there's a lot of suggestion that comes with those.
Yeah, that's true.
Where you are too volatile, you could fly off the handle, your emotions are all over the place. And without the introduction that you've had to me, most people wouldn't know this. You walk around and nobody really sees the real inner you. And you hit points in your life where you're convinced that everyone judges you as at your worst. I certainly did.
Yeah, true.
And that's not how most people see or saw me.
Yeah.
Trying to find a way to recognise that myself is a lot harder.
Yeah, it takes us time to come to terms with that, right? We seem to think, it's coming from, they're thinking about the worst possible thing that we could think of, but at times people are not even privy to such, they don't have that perception. And they have an entirely different perception about us, which we don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, my other people's perception of me is vastly different from mine. And that's from people who are brand new to meeting me to, guys I've known for years. When I found myself at my lowest, I was isolated a lot of the time. I wasn't talking to anyone. I wasn't sharing anything. I was letting everything build up for me. And were small things that added up. And those built and built and built. Never
Right.
shared it until it got to the point where I'd rationalized everything else in my own head. I'd had every conversation that needed to be had with every person I was ever going to see again. I knew the outcomes of those conversations. I knew exactly the way that they'd go, and all the while thinking the absolute worst of myself. And it's a dreadful it's an awful place to find yourself in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you don't have anyone else to, as strange as this sounds, share it with.
Yes.
You don't have that ability to get these noises out of your head and into the air.
That's true, and especially when you are isolated, as you mentioned, then nobody can really kind of shake you out of it. That okay, perhaps, or even try, right? And your mind kind of rules over everything else, and at that point, when you're at your lowest, it's like an abyss that you have difficulties of finding your way back from.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I think in a lot of other people's cases as well, it doesn't necessarily matter what other people say to you because you don't think it's sincere. They're just saying it.
Yeah, just to appease you, right? You feel that they're just trying to be nice, perhaps.
Maybe not even that. Maybe they're just doing it because, that's the right thing to say.
Right.
There's no real meaning behind that. And you forget that people don't have to say nice things.
Yeah.
People don't have to go out of their way to pay you compliments or ask you how you are. They don't have to do that. They choose to.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And this is, you've made a very fair point. I think people, when you're sort of down and out, you tend to not believe even your bestest friend or even your partner telling you. So it's more like a battle within yourself, and you sort of have to come to a point, a break, sort of where you make that breakout, so to say. What was that point for you?
Good question. I spent a couple of years on antidepressants being told that, you will get better if you just keep taking the pills.
Right.
The answer was that was not for me. And since finding out that they're not brilliant for loads of other people either. The pills themselves are kind of a short-term fix. And they can throw your emotions around all over the place. So you can actually find yourself getting worse before you get better with these things. The difficult bit for me was that the pills don't really mask the emotions because whatever was causing the problems was still there and still is there. It is how you actually deal with the stuff that's weighing you down.
Right.
That you find a route back when you're having another one of those internal crazy chats in your head.
Right.
Where you're convincing yourself that you are the world's worst person, or you are ugly, or you are stupid, or you are worthless, or that you don't deserve anything. And not that anyone else thinks that, just that you've rationalized it yourself.
Right.
I'm writing and blogging now almost full time. And most of my stuff tends to be more comedy based, but the more serious bits I've done have been on and around mental health because I spent a long time trying to work out how I'd got to this point in my life.
Right.
Because, as a kid, you don't wake up and the first thing you think, oh, God, Monday, oh, God. And at some point, something clicks in with you in adulthood where that changes. And you don't notice the small changes at the start. I think it was when people really noticed the change in me, or rather they noticed that I wasn't around as much. I wasn't going out as much. I wasn't going to see friends, go to parties, down the pub, wherever we were going.
Right.
There would be an excuse made where I'd be better off on my own.
Yeah.
The example that I use for the piece I wrote on loneliness was Richard Nixon.
Right.
And during the Watergate scandal, bear in mind, he's the leader of the free world.
Right.
He had absolutely zero faith in anyone around him, lost all belief in those closest to him, and just shut himself away.
Yep.
And it doesn't work on any level. There's only so long that you can do this on your own.
Yeah,
you do have people around you. And we all, again, everyone does this from time to time. Everyone has these terrible thoughts where they beat themselves up and they tear themselves down. And I think there's a degree of humility that comes with that. You can't wander around thinking that you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof or about to be the emperor of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you are. I don't know. It's in me. But yeah, at the same time, you also can't walk around thinking you're the world's biggest piece of crap, and that there is literally nothing that is worthwhile, nothing that will make you smile, nothing that will make you happy ever again. Because as cliched as it sounds, things do get better.
Yeah.
But it does require a little bit of work from you as well.
Yeah, it doesn't magically happen. So, this is something that I feel very strongly about. So, as a teenager, I think I was suicidal. I was also depressed. And I started being an entrepreneur. I started my own company when I was 19, I think. And
Wow.
So it just, I think, that was a different phase in my life when I was a teenager and I was like dealing with mental health in a different way. And then as an entrepreneur, I realized that it kind of doesn't go away. It's become a part of me. And I need to be a little more aware, about it, aware of my thoughts and mind my thoughts, so to say. And as you said, everybody has days when they're feeling low, but you need to be more aware about when those days kind of add up to weeks and months. And that is perhaps when you need to sort of make an effort to do something. And obviously this sounds really, it sounds wrong because it's not like people who go through these phases, they're not making an effort, but it's just, that is essentially, that's my perspective. And that is what I had to do. I had to become a little more self-aware of what I was thinking. And then, coming as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of talk about how entrepreneurs kind of, it can get lonely, right?
Hugely.
Yeah, so there's something known as, I think, founders depression, etc. So that is also kind of a battle that it's an ongoing battle. I think it's not something that kind of goes away because there's always the next big mountain that you want to conquer, or there is a new problem that might really dismantle everything that you've built. But the mental health is very, very important. The stigma associated with it is I think that I think would go away when people like you and I are talking about it constantly. But my key was that I just need to be a lot more self-aware, and take decisions and mind my thoughts in on those lines. So that is what kind of works for me on a day-to-day basis. And but this is a more part you to be able to sort of share the story because it's hard. I don't think even I speak a lot about it. How I perhaps was suicidal at some point. But it's not something anybody likes talking about per se because it's a dark time.
This is not glib, happy-go-lucky conversation you have.
Yeah.
These are not normal conversations, but that doesn't mean that it's an abnormal situation.
Yeah.
A lot of people go through this, like I did, and just never speak to a soul, never say a word. And you hear all of a sudden people who do take their lives or who do find themselves suddenly just in a complete breakdown, and it's out of the blue, totally unexpected. How could this person be like this?
Yeah, but people don't talk about it, and because I think that is to do a lot with the stigma as well. That and how to sort of express it as well. Because at times you're just at a loss of words, right? Like, how do you even express that kind of utter sheer hopelessness that you're looking at? And how to sort of put it in words so that somebody else will be able to understand?
Well, and certainly, your example of the entrepreneurship and back to me, the rugby, I threw myself into that sport.
Right.
Yeah, I was training, I was doing gym work. There was a point where I was playing, 6-7 games in a month.
Right.
And making sure I was still there every week and during the week. And that became, my thing for getting my stresses out, venting the bits that were on there. But again, it's someone said to me a little while ago, did you have a happy childhood or are you funny? And and I think we know where this one's gone. But these things do stick with you, and
Absolutely.
you find a way to process them at points in your life. When I was in my 20s, I was really living the party lifestyle, had a lot of fire in me, a lot of energy to burn off, a lot of places I wanted to go, a lot of stuff I wanted to do and see, still do. But I found myself at a time in life where that no longer held any appeal.
Right.
where
Yeah, I think
I
everybody kind of reaches that point, right? Like where that kind of this party life, so to say, like as a teenager, you're always wishing to sort of become an adult and do all of those things. And once you start, unfortunately, the energy level dips, right? At some
yeah,
point.
ever so slightly. I mean, I honestly, I do not know how I used to play rugby. I was watching a match at the weekend, looking at this, and these people
Yeah.
are gods. I don't understand any of this. What did I do?
Yeah.
But you do find a way. I think where for me it was a cumulative effect
Right.
for a while. Rugby was a big passion of mine for a very long time. Absolutely loved it, and my career got cut a bit short through injury. I say career; it wasn't massively lucrative or very lucrative at all. But it was the thing that I loved to do. It was the thing that got my stresses out, and that left a big hole in my life that I wasn't really sure how to fill because it's quite it's a very physical sport. There's a lot of camaraderie and there's a brotherhood there as well. And when that's no longer there, it was great for a few months. About a year, I think it was really good. It was quite nice not to be getting beaten up every weekend. But I needed to find something to fill that void. I then took up Thai boxing because that's a natural progression, especially if you're too injured to play rugby. And that was great as well. And for me, it was the joy of being able to do a 5-minute round working pads or a bag and really thrash, really go hard.
Right.
And when I felt that all of that suddenly got taken away from me one day. Not that it had, it was just my perception.
Right.
And the same thing again with, people who don't succeed in business. They put this energy, this drive, this passion in. They work weekends, they put hours in, they do courses, they study. They do all this extracurricular stuff outside of the business to try and make it work.
Yeah, and then when it sort of doesn't succeed or it even fails a little bit, it takes away a part of you, I think.
Oh, huge. And, it's the investment in time, the investment in energy, sometimes financial too.
Absolutely.
Stuff doesn't always work. You don't always play the perfect game and you don't always win.
Yeah. So, I've been like an entrepreneur for now, I think more than around 12 years now. And I think now, every time I failed, obviously it added to my experience. And that's a good way to. Yeah, so that's a good way to look at it. But then at that point, it seemed like the absolute end. I think the pop culture kind of feeds us that as well, right? There is always like, that overnight success story that goes around. People tend to forget that overnight success, I think this was a quote somewhere that, takes like 10 years or something like that. And so that is the part that is not really talked about so much, that, you have to fail a lot to actually reach a point where it is slightly working and, you might be not constantly worried that, everything is crashing down in your head.
I think that certainly with the entrepreneurial thing, it can make a huge difference because you do view those failures as, those are the life changers at some times. But it is that mindset. And as you said, it's not an overnight success. Nobody just goes, oh, do you know what? I've done this. Wow, you're amazing. You know it all. That's not how life works.
Yep.
I'm trying my best to carve out my career as a blogger / writer, freelance. And if I were to look back from an outside perspective on how my year has gone, it's actually gone really well. I'm getting some freelance work coming in.
Right.
I came runner-up in an award. Got nominated for that to begin with.
Wow.
That's a huge thing. I'm actually getting paid for my work. Something else, something I never thought 15 months ago would be a thing for me.
Yeah.
But I am nowhere near successful yet, not even close.
But again, success is very, very. It keeps changing. It evolves, right? Like you will reach that particular point, and then you'll be like, "There's more."
Absolutely. I mean, in my head, every time that I've published something, I have gone back and read it again and go, I should go back and edit this. Yeah. And it's a real difficulty for me not to go back in, not to go and put an apostrophe somewhere or change a colon to a semicolon. Something really inconsequential, something that if it was published, no one else would notice. But in my head, it's that little thing that needs changing. And I fight that urge with every piece I publish. I do edit it very closely and I do double check and triple check. But every now and then a mistake does creep in. I leave them there because it's a reminder to me that when I do go back and check again, to be more careful, to be a little bit more aware of what I'm doing. And if I notice it again, perfect. It means that it's something I've learned from.
Yeah. That's true. That's a wonderful way to look at it. I think it's all about a learning experience. So, there are a lot of failures, but then they can be. It sounds again like a cliche, a bad cliche at that it's like a stepping stone to success, or at least where you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a rocky road, I think, for everyone, no matter which route you choose. No one gets to the top of their game in sport without a couple of obstacles in the way. Likewise, business. In life too, you don't just breeze through it with nothing happening to you. That's not how it works.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. I think it's. I think that is why it's more important to sort of talk about failures as well, and you should be wearing your failures. It's too much to say that you should be wearing it like a badge of honor, but ideally that is what we should be doing.
If you're a commercial airline pilot and you've crashed your last 19 planes, maybe think about a career change. But there's a limit with everything. Sometimes you're just not suitable for stuff.
Yeah, that is true.
I think finding the thing that makes you happy, and that doesn't have to be with work. Work doesn't have to be the thing that brings you all the joy in the world and you spring out of bed every day to get there. But if you can do something that that allows you to enjoy yourself outside of work, where you're not your job, where it's not your be all and end all. Whatever.
That is very true. Nowadays, people tend to sort of they talk a lot about passion. They talk a lot about you need to feel happy about your work, but at times that might not be the case, right? I'm certainly I'm pretty much very sure that it wasn't the case for our parents. That work was not making them happy, but I am not talking about whether they found that other thing that was making them happy or not, but I am saying that right now, because there are so many opportunities, people tend to think that whatever opportunity they latch on should also bring them a lot of joy. It should obviously not drain you, but it doesn't need to be the sole source of your contentment or joy.
Absolutely. You do what's right for you. And for some people, that's not forging, you're not everyone can be a rocket scientist or a university lecturer or a CEO. And not everybody wants to be either.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think, there's an awful lot of pressure put on people that, you should be the top of your game. You should be doing, this person's doing this. Why aren't you? And, it's different strokes for different folks is the old expression. Not everything suits everyone.
Yeah.
This
is nice. This is what I'll call the episode. Different strokes for different folks.
That might work actually, yeah. But it's true. You have to find a thing that brings you joy. I remember again being at my lowest when I was in a really just foul mood. I took the dog out one morning to go and watch a sunrise, because obviously a sunrise is a beautiful thing, and you get emotions and blah blah blah. Well, I sat down on the beach with my best friend and petted his ears and waited for the sun to come up, and I was absolutely dispassionate about it. It was some colours, and then it got really bright, and then it hurt my eyes, and then I went home. And I thought to myself, well, what was the point of that? And it is, you go down there to watch the sunrise and expect the sunrise to lift you up and cheer you up when you're thinking the absolute worst about yourself and you're feeling like dirt, and it doesn't do that for you. Well, why has it not done that for me? It should do that for me. It's kind of you getting there yourself as well. You've got to make a bit of an effort to appreciate it.
Absolutely, that's true. Again, it comes from...
I mean, I sat there that morning thinking, God, I'm such a loser. God, I'm such a failure. This is what my life has come to. I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm watching this, and even then, I'm not happy. And how on earth you were supposed to appreciate it when you're feeling like that?
Absolutely.
Or thinking like that?
It's a lot about perception, Life will throw a lot of curveballs at you, and how you sort of deal with it and how you perceive it would really change your day-to-day living, I think.
There's an old rugby analogy, and for each game that you play, it's like being in a car crash at about 40 miles an hour. So that's kind of where the levels of injury get picked up. People do get broken legs, broken arms, busted ligaments, jaws, they lose teeth, same as in a car crash. In most cases, people walk away with a couple of cuts and bruises and they're absolutely fine. In some cases, they can be fatal, but you don't get to choose the effect of that car crash that you're in. You don't get to pick which injuries that you walk away with. And that's kind of how life is at points as well. You don't get to pick some things that happen to you along the way. They just turn up. Whether the universe likes playing massive cosmic practical jokes on you, as it seems to like doing with me, you know, whether it turns out you were a dung beetle in a former life, or Stalin or someone, you know, whatever it may be. But again, it is. We talked about this a lot here. Your perception of yourself is really important.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be the king of the world. You don't have to feel superior to everybody else. You don't have to feel inferior to everyone else, or that, you know, you're just slotting in nicely. You've got to find a way that you're comfortable with you.
You're just comfortable with being you, yourself, and, you know, sort of figuring out your own rules regarding how you want to go forward with your life. It's one life. It's a short life.
Yeah, it is. And it's not there for you to spend your time beating yourself up over it.
Absolutely.
You know, you can't spend the rest of your life dwelling on every little thing. And as I did for so long, you know, going back and picking through how things used to be, and why they didn't go as you'd wanted them to, and why why you didn't prepare enough for that, why you didn't put enough thought into it, why you weren't more aware of what was going on at the time. Yeah, any number of things. Why you said the things you did, why you turned left instead of right.
Yeah. So I think most of our problems also sort of come from how we want things to be against how things are, or how, you know, we think perhaps we could have done something else. So I think that also kind of really messes it up for a lot of people, right?
It does throw a spanner in the works too, because we do have this perception of ourselves, right? This idea of what perfect. I honestly believe that if I ran the 100 meters in 9.5 seconds, I'd be happy for about 3 seconds.
Right.
And then immediately think, well, I need to do better than that.
Yeah.
You know, I should probably take up long distance running now as well. I should, you know, do that. And, you know, you're not right for everything, and not everyone gets to be world champion.
Yeah.
But that is not what life is about.
Yeah. So, you know, this has been very good, because I think we're kind of we are in sync about how we feel about these things. I think that, you know, life is about figuring out your own jam and, you know, trying to get better at it. But as you said, you know, you don't have to beat yourself over it.
No, and, you know, this idea of perfection as well, it's a bit of a false one, because it's your own idea of perfection.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. It is about the idea. It's basically about the idea of how things should be in your head.
Yeah, I mean, I've never met anyone who has said to me, you know, I wanted to be a millionaire all my life, and I got there, and then I just stopped.
Yeah, exactly. That is what I'm telling you. You know, this is something that I realized sometime this year only, that big moments that in my head they were big moments that I thought that, you know, they'll come to pass and I'll be really happy, so to say. They come and go, right? Like it's a moment, and then, you know, you're looking at the next big thing to do, and somehow it's actually, again, it's you know, we are talking in a lot of cliches, but it's about just the journey, I think, that you undertake. And if you're not going to enjoy the journey, you are not going to enjoy the you know, when you reach that particular goal either.
No, you've got to find your joy in life. You've got to take some satisfaction. You've got to find something that feels good for you. Yeah, I mean, for some people that's dancing or singing or playing an instrument. I cannot tell you how unsuitable I am for any of those, like literally any of them. Yeah, that's the worst idea I could possibly have. And I'm very lucky that my passion doesn't lead me down that path, because God, I'd be awful at them. You know, I'm conscious of that too. You know, likewise, I'm probably not going to be heading up a Fortune 500 company anytime soon, and I'm actually very okay with that.
Yeah. So it's not like
I know, weird
for everybody.
But that's not who I am, or who I wanted to be either. You know, even when I was working in that environment, you know, coming to terms with that and recognizing that, you know, that wasn't where my passion and my joy was. I didn't take a great deal of joy from the jobs I was doing.
Yeah.
I did, however, take a great deal from what I was doing outside of work.
And that kind of stays with you then.
Yeah, it can put you off, I think. I mean, it's certainly my time working in any form of banking is done. I've said last time, never again, and I will stick by that. It's one industry that I would never return to.
Yeah. Yeah, that is understandable now that you've had all this experience. That kind of brings me to what I wanted to know next. So, how did you get
Sure.
into the blockchain or crypto space per se, considering your
Oh, okay.
banking background?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I sat around, as I said, for a long time with me, myself, and my thoughts. And as I gradually started to come out the other side, I started looking for a route back because, as bonkers as I am, I need to get comfortable in what I'm doing as well. So I started having a look around, and there was a fairly innocuous conversation down the pub. I think it was about 2016. And Bitcoin got mentioned.
Right.
We got talking about this. And so what is it? All right. So how do you get it? All right. Well, what's it worth? This sounds like crap. And I did nothing, absolutely nothing for about 18 months. And then slowly I started to hear a little bit more about blockchain and crypto and what was going on. So I managed to time it absolutely perfectly, which is I bought in to Litecoin just after the December 2017 bull run. So I literally bought in on the 1st of January 2018 was my first venture.
Okay.
And I watched everything absolutely tank. Absolute disaster. I thought I'd done my research. Crypto's the future. This is it. Moon. Lo and behold, no. And after a few months of realising that I wasn't going to wake up hip deep in Lamborghinis, I decided that I needed to start finding out a wee bit more about what was going on.
Right.
So I started looking at things that were being developed in the space, what other cryptos were out there beyond the top 10, what use case was for blockchain. And I discovered something called the ILP, Interledger Protocol, which is the thing that XRP runs on.
Right.
There's also something from that called web monetization, whereby you can earn for your content that you create based on views, link clicks, etc., etc.
Right.
So I started to produce, I will freely admit this, absolutely dreadful written pieces. Really boring, uninteresting.
I'm sure they were not that bad.
No, they were. This is me telling you this with my hand on my heart. Rubbish. Absolutely awful. But this is me with hindsight now. And at the time, I was looking back over these, having not really done a great deal for a very long time. There's a real nervousness about actually publishing your first piece and putting yourself out there for critical internet acclaim from a load of strangers you're never going to meet. What will these people say? As it turns out, these people didn't really say anything too horrible after all. And it was, I actually got quite encouraged. And I realised that I do have a bit of a talent for this. I'm not going to say that I've honed this art form or anything even close to it, but I am finding my feet. And I do feel like I'm getting there.
And I'm glad, and your Twitter page is absolutely hilarious. I follow it and whatever you post.
Twitter's quite the thing. I mean, bear in mind what you and I have talked about for this conversation. Most of my work is comedy writing.
Right.
And it is something that I've always liked. I do love laughing, but I love to make other people laugh as well. And finding ability
from the few conversations we had.
Yeah, I'm not the world's most serious guy at times. But for me, that was a real challenge because this takes work to get something put together where, it's very easy. You've seen what my Twitter feed's like.
Yeah.
There's a few experiments that go on there that then go on towards some of the published stuff. It's kind of like my playground for testing things out. Finding a way to use my words to make people's lives a little bit better has been really rewarding because I get some lovely feedback from people now, really kind things. And I touched on this earlier that people don't have to say
kind things.
They don't. I get really, honestly flattering messages from people who I've never met, who have never read my stuff before, who just say thank you. Or, I've never read something like this. Because you say blogger and it's like a dirty word. Because I am not like a hobbyist blogger. I don't write about recipes. That's not true. I did try writing about kittens and recipes and it was an absolute disaster. Terrible, rubbish. So I acknowledge what I am good at and what I am not good at.
Yeah.
And certain things that I can turn my hand to better than I can to others with this. which is part of the finding my feet process.
Yeah.
But the award nomination earlier this year was I was blown away by that to begin with, and the fact I managed to come third, even after the competition started 6 weeks before I found out about it. I'm pretty happy with that. That seems all right.
No, it's wonderful. I think what you're doing is you're being true to yourself, and I think that is very important. That if you're being kind of I think that is a real sincerity, right? You're being sincere with yourself, you're being sincere with your work, and you like doing what you're doing, and that kind of always makes whatever you produce a little more special.
I think if you need to have passion to any form of creative stuff, and this sounds terrible, and I do acknowledge how much of a knob I sound, but whether your music, art, writing, whatever your creative thing spills out towards, that level of passion that you put into it is what other people see.
Absolutely. It's visible for everybody to see. If you're putting passion in your work, and if it is something that you like doing, then it's visible to everybody to see, and people acknowledge it, like you got acknowledged with this particular award.
I mean, I was doing a podcast earlier this year, and I was doing this with a really, really sharp young lady who said something to me which has stuck with me, which is, if you're not interested in writing it, why would people be interested in reading it?
Right, yeah.
And that has stayed with me the whole time. And it's one of the things that I think about before I even start doing it now. Is, am I interested in this? Because if I'm not, then that's not going to come through in what I'm putting out.
Yeah, it's like making a sale, right? Like, it's just a bad example perhaps, but like if you're not convinced about the product yourself, you're not going to be able to sell it to anybody else.
Yes, and having run my own business, I can tell you that's unequivocally true.
Yeah. So now that you have been in the crypto and blockchain space for a while, are there any particular projects that you especially vouch for, or you're rooting for?
Are we talking specific coins or companies?
Both, actually. You can start with coins, and you can talk about more platforms as well.
Sure. So I think for most of us who have got into crypto, the first thing we hear about is Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And that is generally everyone's route in, because it's the thing that appears on TV stations and in financial papers all over the world now.
Absolutely.
And it's more and more. That's normally for people's first entry into the space. And once you kind of get your head around the concept of what Bitcoin offers, that
is like the starting point.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of the rabbit hole you fall down, because my first question was, okay, well, what is there outside of Bitcoin? And lo and behold, I found 6,000-7,000 odd coins, hundreds of exchanges, dozens of media sites. I found crypto Twitter. I briefly stumbled into crypto Facebook, then ran away screaming. YouTube. Don't go on crypto Facebook, for God's sake. But there's an enormous ecosystem that runs under the surface of blockchain, and I don't think from the outside in people really appreciate how big the space is, how many people are looking at it on a corporate level as well, not just kind of I don't like this term, but it's quite an apt one, the bedroom investor, where someone is, doing their own research at home, putting money from their salary in.
Yeah.
Someone who's not traditionally trained in financial markets, who doesn't work in environments, someone who's actually done this from scratch. Bedroom investor sounds like a really derogatory term, and it's not meant to. It's where we all start out.
100%.
In terms of projects, I, as I said, started off with Litecoin. And we all know how that went. I seemed to stumble from pillar to post in disasters, because again, XRP was my follow-up from here, and I liked a lot of what Ripple were talking about. When I started investing there, they were having conversations with Bank of India, central banks all over the place.
Right.
And where XRP is now versus where it was a couple of years ago with the rumour mills grinding is a very, very different place. There's other huge projects that I think people know less and less about. I mean, there's an awful lot of work going on with Litecoin that people don't know about. What's happening with Ethereum is, very, very interesting times.
Yeah.
We then look at things like what's happening with Bitcoin Cash and BNB, the forks. where did Chainlink suddenly come from out of the blue?
Right.
And there's I've been in this space now for about 2.5 years. I've seen projects come and go. There's the ones that seem to me to have the longevity are the ones that are making the strides to reach out to business, to work with others, to make life easier to get into the space.
To basically, perhaps make this entire ecosystem a little more. It's supposed to be inherently inclusive, but because of the technology aspect, that at times doesn't come across. It comes across as something that only nerds get into.
Oh yes, I mean, again, I am quite proudly a nerd now. I think it's geek chic. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I think
it sounds a lot cooler, right?
Yeah, she keeps changing the terminology. I think I've always been a nerd. So yeah,
geek chic. Go with that. It's a goodie. What else is in there? There's a lot of different coins for a lot of different use cases. So VeChain, for instance, I'm very interested in.
Okay.
Big fan of where that's going. I like what Zilliqa's up to.
Okay.
I think Zilliqa's got some genuine use case, and Ocean's another one. There's such a broad spectrum of this, and it's very hard to lump everything into the same box still.
Yeah.
And there is so much going on in this space. It's really hard to keep an eye on everything. There's how many coins now? 6,000, I believe. 7,000 and counting.
Yeah. I think that number keeps increasing every day. So there is a lot going on. But then, now there is a lot of noise around DeFi. So do you have, do you have a take on DeFi?
I have a really unpopular take on DeFi.
Really?
I do. I've got a really unpopular take on it. I don't see it adding a great deal of credibility to the space. It feels a little bit like the days of the ICOs, with the initial coin offerings.
Right, in 2017.
Yeah, where it was the traditional pump and dump thing. What I have seen so far seems to be that people get an airdrop and then rush for the exit as soon as possible. And whoever gets to the exit fastest is the one who might actually make some money. And at some point, someone will be left holding something that's worthless.
That's true. That is absolutely true. I think with DeFi, it's very hard to sort of, figure out which projects are actually trying to move and create solutions, like long-term solutions, as you talk about. Otherwise, there are a lot of scams and there are a lot of rug pulls, etc., which is giving DeFi a bad name, frankly.
Oh, huge. I mean, I freely admit, it was one of the things that I did last year. I put an entire scam website together. I got turned over by an arbitrage bot.
Wow.
I'm really honest about talking about this stuff because I'd rather that people didn't make my mistakes.
Right.
Because my screw ups are there to be learned from by other people.
Make your new mistakes.
Yeah, realistically, if the Titanic are looking for a new captain, I'm available. So it's worth bearing in mind.
Yeah.
But I, having worked in finance before, there was something called an arbitrage bot.
Right.
And what it offered to do was arbitrage your crypto between exchanges, sell high one, buy low on the other, and there would be a profit generated. You didn't have to do anything other than send them some crypto. They'd then start sending it back. Now, this, with hindsight, and the way I've described it, sounds like the world's biggest Ponzi scheme. And it wasn't the world's biggest Ponzi scheme, but it was still a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
Really simply, what they did is they pocketed all the money, and the early investors, they paid out with the later investors' money. One day, there were technical problems, and the payouts stopped.
Yeah.
So they had a quick period of time where they said, oh no, this is a third-party technical issue. In the meantime, went around taking down all their social media, destroying everything, deleting all accounts. They got away with millions of dollars. This was a scam they repeated for Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Litecoin, Digibyte as well, I believe. And they did this very successfully for a period of months.
Wow.
So at the end of this, when I discovered that I had been scammed and that I wasn't getting any money back and this future promise of wealth wasn't all it was cracked up to be, I had another moment of beating myself up and going, God, you're the world's biggest idiot. You're such a loser. Why are you like this? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Because I should, there's that word, have known better.
Yeah.
I made a mistake.
But
And
they're very convincing, right? Like, you know,
hugely. They are designed to be convincing.
yeah.
The cut and thrust of most scams is that people who have a magic money printing machine, if they wanted to give you lots of money, they wouldn't need your money to do that in the first place.
Yeah.
Which is surprising when you put it like that. If they've got this magic formula for creating infinite wealth, why are they taking your money to give you a tiny fraction of that?
Yeah. No, so yeah, I think doing your own research becomes like very important. But again, there is a limit to how much an individual can do, considering these scamster ratings has here.
I looked at this arbitrage bot for about a month before joining. And the reason that I joined it was because my social media feed was lit up with people saying, this is great, this is working, I'm getting this much back, thank you so much, this is great. Yeah. And lo and behold, that changed almost overnight as fingers got pointed at people. There were referral links where people could earn by bringing their friends on board. For the older people in the space, BitConnect was one that was an absolute disaster. Huge scam, very similar along these lines as well, where you were encouraged to bring your friends and family in. It's really difficult when there are still things like that going on and they're highlighted, but the traditional financial world has just as many of these go on as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
It's very easy to forget that in crypto, that there aren't still people who are selling fake shares or fake bonds, or setting up organizations that they know their investment portfolio is going to fail. And that's why it's being set up to do that.
Yeah, I think it's not. It is, even though it does come into the news and stuff. Somehow people tend to they're more. It's easier to forgive, I think, the traditional monetary system for people than an upcoming technology where there are too many naysayers, right?
Well, exactly, and worst of all, because it's crypto, it means you don't really understand what's going on, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you don't understand it, and when you don't understand something, you either fear it, or you just become a naysayer and into.
Yeah. It's really easy. There's the crypto analogies are toughy because the traditional, and I don't like that word, but it's the best I have. The traditional financial world, views it as a criminal's currency, where it's used to buy guns and drugs and people traffic and all the rest of it.
Right.
So you'd be staggered to hear what people used and still use to buy guns, drugs, and people traffic, because somehow it doesn't all get converted to a crypto and sent elsewhere. There's huge funds that still flow through the world's major financial institutions.
Yep.
On a daily basis.
Yep, and that is that's happening right under our noses, and somehow crypto gets like I think it's like any new technology kind of faces a lot of backlash, because again it comes down to understanding. I think it was the same with when electricity came about, right? There were print media had like a field day saying that everybody it's like, why fix something when it's not broken? That was like their particular reasoning. Why would you try to bring something in that has potential to electrocute people and people can get injured, etc.? So I think there is always I think Andreas Antonopoulos had said it in his book or a video, that there'll always be criminals and people who kind of take to newer technologies in a much faster fashion because they have right to lose.
Yeah, it's a simple thing, really. I mean, the people adapt a lot faster to things than government law enforcement. It's a much bigger wheel to turn for them.
Yep.
And that's been one of the things with regulations as well, and why crypto is viewed as such a shark tank sometimes from the outside, because of that perceived lack of regulation. I think a lot of it's about re-educating people about how you need to start treating your money, because we've got very used to things like one-click pay or using your phone. Cash is very rapidly becoming a thing of the past.
Right.
The security required to keep your phone locked, keep your funds on your phone or on your card, for most of us, it's kind of second nature now.
Right, absolutely. So re-education is key, I think. I think financial literacy is very important, and somehow it's never really touched upon when we do our, formal education.
Yeah, school for me was not the greatest time in my life, and I didn't enjoy it. And I find out why, because it's not how I learn. It's not how my geared up to store facts and information. Not that some of it didn't sink in, but it's how I learn best. I learn best by doing, not having something regurgitated back at me.
Yeah.
And I think that's for me why a lot of the school stuff wasn't as great as it could be. I just lost interest in it because it was boring.
Yeah, it becomes irrelevant. Like while you're even going through it, you feel that it's irrelevant. And, the practical nature of things kind of does not align with what is there in the textbooks.
Oh, Tarusha, I assure you, if you met some of my teachers, the subject matter was utterly irrelevant, no matter which subject they taught.
Really?
Absolutely. This was Southern England in the early 90s. We had some strange characters in the woodwork.
Okay. So I think it does come down a lot to who's teaching it, but then again, the way people absorb information is also, as you said, assimilation is different for everybody.
Yeah, it is. I mean, again, for me, it's one of the things that I've learned with I spent some time at Deutsche Bank back in, when was that, 2005, I think. I'm just trying to remember when their e-learning system came in. We were revamping their e-learning system.
Right.
All the courses that they run internally out of what used to be the head office in London. We were trying to get everything clear, concise and wrapped up for the company globally. And the hurdles that we had to overcome, trying to get everything synced up, working at the same time, get it all stress tested, giving people access and making sure it ran without any hitches at all. It wasn't easy, but we got there.
Yeah.
And there was something I remember you said earlier where we should have had this great sense of pride and satisfaction in our work. And there were about 4 of us who were going, right, okay, we need to start doing stuff now and get working whilst everyone else was celebrating.
Right.
Where there's that, it doesn't matter that, we've done it. Right, okay, fine. What are we doing next? There was that degree of, right, we need to really start concentrating now because we've done a thing.
Yeah. Okay, so now we've spoken about DeFi, we've talked about your background. There's also a lot of noise around NFTs. What is your take on NFTs in general, considering you come from, again, like from the kind of experience you've had in the traditional monetary system? What do you feel about NFTs in particular?
NFT is huge potential. There are a lot of unseen things that are going on at the moment. The NFT art scene is what people are mostly focused on at the moment because it gives someone a tangible asset that's attached to the token. Whereas traditionally what we have is you have your ledger or maybe not your ledger anymore, your other cold storage wallet or your exchange. You see your balance that's on there and you know what's up. There's nothing that accompanies that. NFT, just really briefly, non-fungible token, it allows the token to be transferred as well as the asset. So in this case, if you own a painting, the NFT comes along with it. I spoke to a guy called Franklin Fitch recently. I don't know if you know him.
I don't believe I do.
I'll give you his bio after we finish up here, but he's a really fascinating guy. He's very heavily into the NFT scene and sees where it's going.
Okay.
The art scene has really embraced it because the traditional works that people do, they create stuff, they hang them in a gallery, they hang them in another area. There's an accepted loss when they sell the piece, and that's how they've always worked. With COVID, which we're trying not to talk about, all the galleries, all the museums, all the restaurants and bars where things would be on display, where people would see it, no one's in there at the moment. And revenue streams had virtually dried up for a lot of artists. But this concept of digital art is quite a tough one because most people see a meme and that's it. That's what digital art, or maybe like some sort of weird hentai thing that someone's thrown together. As opposed to some of the incredible creations that are going on in the art scene. And it's a bit like street art or tattoos. There's been, I'm not sure reticence is the right word, but maybe a wariness to embrace it, to accept it as you would other more traditional art. But where NFT goes from here we're starting to see things where companies like Ubisoft are entering, where you've got companies like the NBA who are also producing NFT. And we're looking at people who are influencers outside of the crypto space, how to bring people in. Art's doing that with the NFT scene. So if you can imagine, let's say somebody like a LeBron James or an Oprah Winfrey or Barack Obama.
Right.
If you can imagine something where their first original NFT piece hits the scene.
It'll be mad.
Do more than that? Yeah, absolutely. It's a new art medium.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of people doing a lot of things. But there are artists who are carving out a career. Now, that's how the art scene's taken it on and provided another route into crypto for normies. What it offers beyond that, could you have, let's say, a car with an NFT where the physical real-world asset comes with the token that provides a service history and ownership history, any repairs, any accidents? Would there be a use for that?
I think that's yet to be explored, but the possibilities are absolutely endless. Like when I think NFT, I'm also thinking real estate. I'm not just thinking art, and I'm thinking when people kind of invest in all of these whiskies and wines, that can be a good use case.
Incredible use case again. The idea of attaching a physical asset to something digital is, I think, where we're looking at in the next natural progression, because we're quite used to the idea of loot boxes in games,
right?
Whereby, let's say, again, I'll use the NBA as the example. You buy a loot box, you get some new kit, you get a star player, and that is worth something. It's a digital good that is paid for with real world money, or in the case of EA bucks. Transferring that onto something physical, whereby, let's say, you could have a piece of property attached to an NFT, which is registered, again, ownership history, government, land registry, whichever one you have domestically. Speeds up the process exponentially in terms of exchanges, cuts down on lawyers' fees, cuts down on paperwork.
Yeah. And a lot of confusion as well, right? There's, when it comes to property, there's a lot of... it can become potentially litigious, right? And that is also resolved if you're doing it on blockchain.
I've heard the number of people I know who've tried to sell something, and because of the length of time it's taken, they've had the buyers pull out, or they've had the buyers suddenly drop the price last minute, or suddenly wish to change the term. It's been a nightmare on so many different levels, and a lot of that is down to the speed. India bases a lot of its laws on UK laws.
Right.
And some of our stuff is absolutely archaic in terms of paper exchange. I mean, when I started working in the mid-90s, late 90s, the idea of the paperless office was what was being sold to us. And naturally, we got loaded up with more fax machines and photocopiers than we knew what to do. That was my early career, fighting those and a load of toner cartridges. But the paperless office has been on the way for a while. It's never quite been perfected. And NFT really does offer something to be very seriously considered. I've been interested to see what Cardano's been up to and how they've been migrating some things to their blockchain.
I think a lot of people are doing very interesting things, especially, as you mentioned already, like art is such a big use case, and it's opening up a lot of doors, I think, for a lot of budding artists. And I think that, the fact that it is actually adding to opportunities in this horrid time that we are not talking about. But I think
you think about a traditional artist. I mean, I can't think of. I'm not going to pull a name out of the hat. That's unfair. But if you've got someone who produces, really beautiful paintings, really spends time and effort and puts love into their work, and they hang that piece in a gallery to be sold. The only people that see that painting are those people that come into the gallery. Yeah. In a very competitive, very small space. Right. And it's hard for artists to make a name for themselves. Yeah. What NFTs allowed them to do is suddenly get a global reach for their pieces. where
Absolutely.
they are no longer restricted by that gallery. They are no longer restricted by that sales structure either, where they can put a fair price on their work, where they can see what other people are selling and what the prices on that is. And, where they can get themselves set up for commission pieces.
Right.
Produce series as they want. It's incredibly liberating in a number of ways, because the traditional print form of art, where you have, again, I'll use the example of a painting where you've got the original and then you have print runs, the first edition, second edition. Again, you can do that with NFT.
Yeah. No, I think as you said, the future is with the right execution of NFTs, and I think people should be looking at them more seriously, not just at CryptoKitties and sort of dismissing them.
Yeah. CryptoKitties is the one that came out first. It's not the first one, but it's the one that came onto people's lips because it was like a fun, easy little thing, like an embracer into the space.
Yeah.
Is it a long termer? I don't know, probably not. But I've been wrong. I've been wrong in the past. The options of things like Magic the Gathering was a conversation I was having. So you enter the collectible card game, the CCG route. Now that throws up a whole host of other options, because you're bringing, again, people like Ubisoft. You're bringing them involved, and they're not going to be the only ones who are creating this either. There's enormous bringing up already for these.
Yeah, there's always been like a huge, I think, market for collectibles, right? And this is what it is. NFTs are essentially collectibles, at least currently, like with the biggest use case that is there.
Totally, but in between those collectibles that are being carved out, there's also the creator of the original Superman and creator of Batman #1, or the person who first brought the Fantastic Four to the limelight. That first initial image that came through. But this time, they're not just being seen in a very limited print form. They can have the option of being seen everywhere. And that is,
that's brilliant.
Hugely. The revenue streams alone it opens up. In terms of being able to make a sustainable living on this, people are starting to. And artists are being recognised for their work. I mentioned street art earlier on. Banksy is the name that's known around the world as the graffiti artist that brought it all through. He still does pieces today. Did one on London Underground recently, which they immediately cleaned because they viewed it as vandalism. It's a good idea, right? Again, you've got a similar thing in the tattoo scene, where you've had people who would never normally be considered artists, who have, I guess, limited canvases for their work. But thanks to the magic of the internet, suddenly started to get their work seen more widely, started to inspire other tattoo artists.
Yeah.
And you get that degree of competition, you get that degree of talent, and you get, people coming into it who would never normally touch it, who didn't think it was for them.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that this kind of, when somebody else does it, I think encourages 10 more people to sort of at least look at it and consider their passion a little more seriously, or take it a little more seriously.
I'd hope so. Yeah. Again, the NFT thing is huge. We're only looking at this in a very, very small aspect, which is the art/collectibles thing.
Yeah. The use cases can be potentially really huge, as long as it's executed well, I think. But definitely the future kind of lies there, and it'll converge into people taking NFTs more seriously and looking beyond the scope of just art.
There's a level of efficiency that's involved as well, because we touched on this briefly with the house sale. You have an exchange, and it's because everyone knows what they're getting.
Yeah.
It is what it is. There's no hidden clause. There's no secret thing tucked away. There's no, double check, triple stamp from a team of legal professionals or estate agents. It's just done. Yep.
It's much more efficient. It's probably, the way forward, I think.
What a radical concept, right? You can buy something that doesn't take you nearly 6 months to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is crazy, right? Right now, I think all of us slowly are moving towards solutions which are more efficient, right? Like that is the reason why we order stuff online rather than going somewhere. Obviously now we have to order stuff online because of this we are not trying to talk about, but otherwise as well.
Look, it's going on, and it's ridiculous not to talk about it. The conversations that I tend to have with people now, because I'm one of these people who isn't glued to the news. I was at the start. I was incredibly aware of what was going on, but my perception of this has changed over time.
Yeah.
We are where we are at the moment. In the UK, I'm currently sitting in what's called a Tier 4 lockdown, which came into effect on Saturday at midnight.
Right.
So we're quite new into this. What it looks like, I don't know. I think the best one I've seen from it so far was at the weekend, 371 more sleeps till Christmas. So I think you've just kind of got to take what's in front of you at the moment.
Yeah.
This year has been so utterly weird.
Yeah, the weird is the right word. I think, I'm sorry, on some level, I think that this year kind of helped people prioritize things because they could finally pause for a little while. And so in that way, perhaps it was essential. We had it coming. I think that we kind of all of us on this particular rat race, and we're going on. And I thought that it was a good year to recalibrate. But again, obviously, it's been weird, and it's the kind of loss and misery that it has brought in. Obviously, cannot be undervalued.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple of funerals this year. My downstairs neighbour died in May.
Wow.
She
I'm sorry.
Unfortunately thank you. She unfortunately had a heart attack in her sleep.
Oh.
But we got woken up with her friend who was coming to take her to work, trying to resusc her. Anyway, long story short, we had to go to what's called a Facebook funeral.
Oh.
And it is a very sad and empty looking room where there's a few words spoken and a few songs played, as you'd normally get. And then everyone looks like they're, about to do their thing, but the feed suddenly gets cut. And you're left, sitting wherever you're sitting. In our case, it was sitting in the living room with nothing but, you've just got this depth of feeling where ordinarily, you'd have the option to hug people, to see other people, to tell stories and catch up and all the fun stuff. And that just, that's just vanished. The ability to console other people around you is a huge thing. And we've had a couple of these, and they're absolute gut wrenches. They're really hard to do. Yeah,
no, it's been a really, really, I think, bad year. It's just that is I try to look at it with like a little silver, I think, so that it doesn't seem like an utter waste. That perhaps this was it's important for for people to sort of reprioritize, figure out what they want out of life truly, and get their priorities straight, I think. And I think more than ever this year, people discovered the importance of, as you said, like meeting people, your own family or whoever you call your family.
Yeah, we've had, it's a strange one for me because I actually feel that this year's gone fairly well, which is surprising hearing me actually say that out loud, especially considering how everyone else's has been. You're right, it has given me a lot more focus, and it's also given me a lot more realism about where I am with stuff as well.
Yeah, that's what I feel too. So, even I've lost some relatives to this horrible virus, but then again, thank you. But then again, I think like everybody's had like a year of loss, but there are some good parts to it as well. And as you said that, I think this year was surprisingly like, I work went kind of well. So that was good because it started going in the direction that we wanted to sort of go in. And so that is why I can't completely say that, okay, what a terrible year, because I think work went well. So I feel a lot grateful about it.
We can all have good or bad years despite what's going on around us. And again, this year has been incredibly tough on so many levels. It's not been one thing, it's been multiple things. And it doesn't feel at the moment like there's an end. I think that's the hard bit. But, it's different if, all right, I've got 3 more weeks where I have to do this. And, that's not been how it is.
Yeah, there is no end even now, right? Now, with the vaccine there and people getting vaccinated, etc. Now the damn thing is mutating.
Well, it's a good question, and again, we've seen the Pfizer vaccine come out. I'm trying to remember the name of the other one that recently
I
gained
think
approval.
I think it's Pfizer and it's Moderna, I think.
That's Moderna, thank you.
Yeah.
There's the Sputnik one as well from Russia.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've heard noises about a Korean/Chinese one that I can't remember the name of. It's, again, having looked at what's being rolled out and where everything is going, things being marked for approval, what the world looks like next year, whether or not this succeeds or fails, it's really challenging times ahead. But that doesn't mean it's insurmountable.
Yeah, that's the important part.
Yeah, this year there's been some incredible nastiness that's gone on, but I've also seen incredible charity, acts of kindness towards others. There's been a lot of that. There's been a lot of generosity of spirit towards people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at times the worst also kind of brings out the best in some people, and we've sort of seen a lot of good also come out that kind of reinstates our hope in humanity, so to say.
It does. And those are the important bits not to lose sight of either. That there are those people out there that do make a difference. That do, whether you know it, whether they know it or not, they're the person that cheers you up, the person that you read something, you listen to something, that you make a difference to them.
Yeah. So no, I think that is exactly what I was trying to tell you. Like, when we had spoken earlier, you kind of made a huge difference to my day that day. And then, I started following you on Twitter, and I keep laughing and giggling at the most odd times by your content.
Yeah, again, I've done the corporate thing, and I didn't like it, and I'm not going to try and be something I'm not anymore. I know what I'm good at, and I don't want to be some grey-suited, beige, tied-wearing guy. That's not me. That's not where I'm right, and it's not where I fit. Trying to find a place where I do fit, of course, has been quite the challenge.
Yeah, but essentially everybody kind of finds their balance. I don't know if everybody does. I think maybe we are very lucky that we have, and I think it's a work in progress. Every day I think of new things that perhaps I want to accomplish and do, and then self-awareness has to come there, whether I really want to do it or whether it's about hopping on the next bandwagon. But it's important, and it's important not to, as you said, lose sight of the important things when things are kind of hard, and that is essentially where we are. So, this particular conversation, it has been so free-flowing that we have completely gone past our deadline.
Sorry.
No, I've just been having so much fun. But no, I would like to, ask my last two perhaps questions.
Sure, I'll be quick.
Yeah. No, please take your time. This conversation has been really fun, and I'm sure that our listeners will enjoy it as well. So my penultimate question: who would you say are good thought leaders or good places to sort of absorb content if somebody's trying to get into the crypto space?
Good question. If you're trying to get into the crypto space, there's a load of media sites that are out there, depending on your localization as well. So I'm trying to. You've put me on the spot now because I'm going to have to start reading off a load of people. We've touched on one of the biggest people who I first encountered, which was a guy called Andreas Antonopoulos, and I first found him on the Joe Rogan podcast,
right,
where he was talking
two
about
good
Bitcoin.
Places.
Yeah, two really good places. So he has been one of the people who's kind of flown the flag for Bitcoin.
He's instrumental, I think.
Oh yeah, he's a very inquisitive guy, and that inquisitive has led him to where he is now. And having listened to him talk a bit more and see where he sees things going as an end user, effectively, yes, he does have a vested interest in it, but he's looking at this from the perspective of a person who uses crypto for their day-to-day lives. In terms of people who I've been following recently, there's a few influencers who've caught my eye, but I don't want to shamelessly plug these people. One of the things about crypto that I've always believed in is that you have to do your own research.
That's true. Very, very true.
Finding those starting points, finding the bits to have a look at, finding the more trusted news sources is difficult. Social media, for me, has been hugely beneficial.
Yeah.
Well, Twitter in this particular case. There's a lot of good crypto information on Twitter.
That's
There's a lot of bad information on there as well, so be careful.
Yeah. I think everybody has to be careful with what and who they are listening to. That's very, very important. So, this is something that I ask everybody who kind of comes on the show. What would be your advice for someone who's perhaps peering in from the outside to, essentially get into this space and start living on blockchain and get into, crypto in a big way?
Okay. The short answer is little and often, whether that is buying your coin of choice, whether that is researching, whether that is learning something within crypto, be that trading, be that what's going on in NFT, be that what new project is working with whom. The ability to make small incremental changes in what you're doing. In the same way that people save money, there was a point in time where there was a point in time when I was putting in $5 a month. That was all I could put in, right? $5 a month.
Yeah.
And that was what I could do some months.
Yeah.
But I did.
Yeah.
And in between that time, I learned what I was putting into beyond Litecoin, beyond XRP, beyond Bitcoin.
It's not the amount. It's about the discipline, I think.
Hugely. One of the beautiful things for me is the amount of knowledge I've picked up just by osmosis. My mind is a lot more inquiring than it used to be, and the osmosis you get from other people in the space, because there are a lot of smart people.
That's true.
Has been really good for me. I mean, learning things about the Greek political system, which is completely irrelevant to most things crypto, but learning about Indian regulations and what's happening in Indian exchanges and how that affects global demand supply. Learning what's happening with the States, seeing how the UK regs are tying up with the EU regulations.
Right.
This is normally the most boring stuff alive. I'd never read these things normally, but because I've got interested in what I'm actually putting into, I do want to know what's happening, and I do want to find out what it means for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is essentially, I think, very true. You get into a new space, you have to constantly learn. You're constantly on your toes, right? Because this is such a dynamic space.
It is, and it is. I mean, DeFi is the good example. It is incredibly fast moving. I mean, there's been made and lost overnight, which is one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of it for the blockchain space. There is the evolution, the creativity, and I think more importantly for me now as well, the type of people that are coming on board. Crypto and blockchain has traditionally been viewed as quite immature, not just in terms of the market itself, but more so the people who are around it.
Right.
There's a lot more high caliber business people who are starting to migrate over.
Yeah, there's much more meat in the market, so to say.
Yes, very much so, and not necessarily from traditional industries you might expect.
Yeah.
The finance and banking side of things, sure, I understand that, but you'll start to see major PR and marketing heads start looking at crypto very seriously. You're starting to look at international companies, names that are on everybody's lips, start to look very seriously at long-term partnerships. And when that happens, it becomes exciting times.
Yeah, these are exciting times. It's a good time to sort of delve into this space because it's only going to grow. Essentially, if anybody is sort of peering in, all they have to do is perhaps stick their toe in and just get their hands dirty a little bit, I think.
But there's no better time to learn either.
Yeah.
We are, certainly in the UK, I'm sure in other places too, we are restricted in what we can and can't do at the moment. And what you do with that time, it's entirely up to you.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah. Again, this is something that needs to be said often. I think I get that it's a hard time, and obviously self-care and taking care of your mental health is very, very important at this moment, and that is like the highest priority. But then, what else are you doing with your time, considering you're so restricted? All over the world, I think everybody kind of agrees to this particular notion. I don't think there's been any single point in history where people all over the world in every country could actually understand what you say when you say, you're under a lockdown.
It's nuts. It's so strange. It really is. But it's become, I hate calling it the norm, but it's become what people expect.
Yeah. And everybody understands, right? So I think this is like a good time for I think people are becoming more empathetic because they do understand what the other person is actually going through on some level, because all of us are kind of going through this together and we are in
Yeah.
it together. So,
I mean, I think, I've said to people this year, friends of mine, if you do need someone to talk to and you're not comfortable talking to me or whoever else, there are lines available. There are people who, volunteer their time or who do actually do this professionally.
yeah,
Who are there to help. Your situation will always be unique to you.
absolutely. That's true.
And your stresses and the pressures that you have will always be unique to you. So no one is going to completely understand. But being able to talk about the things that are at the forefront of your mind and maybe getting some of those noises out in the air rather than having them just with your own thoughts, with no one else involved. And that's where the destructive bit starts to come in, where it becomes unhealthy and where you're not looking after yourself as well.
Yeah.
Because it manifests itself in weird ways. Because it's not just you feel a bit sad. You will find yourself snapping at people more easily. You're more short-tempered. You are not eating or sleeping as well. And all of a sudden you find that you're not eating or sleeping that well. You're having really, really shitty thoughts about yourself. You're struggling with work because you're not taking any enjoyment out of it and you're hating everything else around you. Well, there comes a point where that does have an effect.
That's absolutely, again, hitting the nail on the head. I think, it's about, I must have picked it up from somewhere, but it basically, somebody had a dialogue and they said it's just about not like screaming into a pillow before sleeping. It's like, you're just hoping that the screams are kind of heard by somebody who understands.
Yeah, it's a toughie because, for me, again, having not talked to anyone, when you find that option is there to you, you're not really sure what to do with it.
True.
And I felt incredibly stupid, unbelievably stupid talking about anything at first.
That's true.
But it does get easier. It's like with the writing. I started off and it was terrible. And over time, I've got better at it because I've put time in. I've looked at what I've done before. It is a bit of self-reflection, but it's a bit of kind self-reflection as well. Knowing that you're not perfect, knowing that you do make mistakes and that you will every single day for the rest of your life.
And that is okay.
Yeah, 100%. You should.
Life would be so boring if we were all perfect and not making mistakes.
Can you imagine if we're all the same and no one ever screwed up?
Yeah.
I honestly, I
it's a
don't
dull
know
existence.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Who wants to live like that?
Yeah, I really, people want to sort of live in a scenario, or in their head, they want to be in a place where there are no problems to deal with. But honestly, that kind of living will really bore you out, I think, very quickly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's really boring to live in a struggle-free existence where there are no problems. I don't know how anyone gets any satisfaction out of life like that.
Yeah.
It would be nice to.
It's about relativity, right? You have to be, at some point, you need to struggle to actually then enjoy the satisfaction that comes from your struggle once they kind of grow fruition.
Yeah, one of the things that I found with me as well, and other people I've spoken to about this since, and I don't mean, I'm not a trained mental health professional. I'm just somebody who's gone through it and is still going through it.
Yeah.
There comes a point where you acknowledge that maybe you're not doing everything quite right, and that maybe you're not completely correct in what you do and you say all the time. But there's also an acceptance that other people aren't doing that either.
Yeah.
And it is, it does go both ways. Nobody is perfect. Everybody overreacts. Yeah. And there are times in life when everybody does think the worst of themselves.
Yep.
Staying like that is when it gets destructive
the problem.
And unhealthy. Yeah. And that's when you least feel like doing it is the time normally when you should be talking to someone.
Yeah.
Sounds crazy because I know myself. I didn't want to share a thing, I didn't want to share that I was scared or tired or fed up with work or, frustrated with my finances or anything like that. I just didn't do it. It's not what I did. So lo and behold, after years and years of living like that, it came out in really unexpected ways.
Yeah.
Where my
That's very true.
Yeah, I found my intelligence working against me.
Yeah.
Where, again, having pictured scenarios, had conversations in my head with the person before they'd even happened, I'd rationalised and justified everything.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I was wrong in that rationalisation and justification.
Yeah, we only realized that a little too late. But what you just said, all of it resonates so highly with me. I think we might be twins. So,
For your sake, I sincerely hope not.
Okay, cool. But no, I think if I'm like able to get to the point where I'm as self-aware as you are, and can really reflect, I think the turnaround time would be much quicker. And
look, this didn't happen overnight. This has been years in the making, and to get comfortable enough to talk to someone about this, and to actually have someone else, anyone else listen into this, that maybe it resonates at some point, maybe they can actually get something from this. That's really the ultimate goal. We are all deeply flawed human beings who are walking disasters. All of us.
Yeah.
There is a way back, for just about anything. As bad as stuff can get, there's normally a way.
Yeah.
There's very few things in this world that are utterly insurmountable. But trying to do it all on your own,
that's not going to be. That's one sure way of sort of failing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's like the entrepreneurial thing again. You can you can hire a lawyer, you can hire an HR specialist, or you can do it all yourself and see how you get on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you won't get on anywhere.
Yes, fine. You can do that and carry on regularly. Yes, no worries. At some point, you have to have faith in other people to find that bit. And I lost mine for a while.
Yeah.
And trying to stop it happening in other people is where I'd like to see this end up.
Yeah. Wow, this has been a great conversation. Really, I think I can speak to you for hours at the end. But just for our listeners' sake, do you have any last thoughts, parting thoughts?
Last parting thoughts, sure. If you are struggling with your mental health, it is okay to be doing that.
Yeah.
People are a lot more understanding than you might, and that is across the board. The fact there's more awareness and education is good. The fact there's still the stigma attached to it is bad. Yeah. But you would be surprised how many people who are absolutely insane and nuts wander around on a daily basis looking completely normal.
That's true.
Absolute lunatics wandering around among us.
True.
Every day. And they're not stopping either. I hate to tell you this. They're everywhere. Finding the point where you recognise that you do need a wee bit of help in whatever form that takes. Sometimes can come too late, but there is no shame in it.
Yeah.
There's no shame in needing a little bit of help every now and again, because everybody does.
Yeah, all of us do. We weren't really put here on this planet to do it all on our own. Like that's stupid. Right, like as a perception. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people if we all were, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think absolutely correct. This has been such a lovely conversation. Thank you so much, Colin, for taking out time in your busy schedule to talk to me. It has been lovely. I think I feel like I found a friend in you, and thank you so much.
No worries. Have a great week. We'll catch you soon. Thanks, Tarisha.
Thank you so much, Colin.